Now, there's one thing about the human animal. If it has class, it has it. If it doesn't, you cannot give it to them.
This is The Law, live audio wrestling with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide.
You broke the all-time record for the largest gathering of trailer park trash The Rock has ever seen.
I'm one of the biggest legends stars ever lived. God! And you kids took that too tight too, Billy!
And I heard the news the next day. And I slept like a baby last night.
From time to time, we'll be bringing you what we feel were the best of our recent shows.
Like me or not, I didn't come up here to be liked. I came up here to get paid. And whoever you put in front of me, I'm gonna drop you down.
Yeah. Dummy. Yeah. Dummy. Yeah.
I've had them down there on the dirt. I know what it's like to eat out of garbage cans, man. I know what it's like to sit there on the street and do nothing. I know what it's like to fight.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Bradie Wedham.
And there it is. It's the end of the song, and that means welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Law Live Audio Wrestling. I am your host, Chris Tidwell, otherwise known as Notorious TID on some of those social media things. And joining me always as my co-host, little Bradie Wedham at Bradie W on all of his socials. And this week we are coming off of the heels of probably what everybody's going to be calling the biggest WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 40 from Philadelphia. Man, it was fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We are also going to touch base because coming up is UFC 300. And one of the titles that they have is the BMF title. And this thing is the most ridiculous title I've ever heard of in my entire life. But we're going to talk about it anyways. And we're also going to have an interview where I get to sit down with TID's Kick in the Head. And this week, our interview is with none other than TNA superstar, independent wrestling superstar, former WWE superstar. I'm talking about Eric Young. And this is an interview that you do not want to miss at all. Well, if that isn't enough, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to answer the question, where the heck is Maxwell Jacob Friedman? Now, before I get to all of that, I got to say hello to my boy, Bradie. Bradie, how you doing, brother?
Welcome to Sin City. That's a mighty fine coat you're wearing. Oh, sorry, wrong show. Welcome to Romper Room, Busy Dancing Bee. Oh, no. Yeah, wrong show. Yeah. We're here on The Law, live audio wrestling, and I am excited, very excited, after the biggest, most massive WrestleMania of all time. I think this was the biggest weekend in wrestling of all time because everybody put on a show.
It was unbelievable. Everybody knows WrestleMania is a big thing leading up, and there's so many indie companies that go to the town wherever WrestleMania is, and they put on their shows. And I mean, it was shows all day, all night. If you can't tell, I am tired as hell. It's been a long weekend. That's why we held off from doing this, because there was just way too much going on. And we wanted to see what the fallout was going to be after WrestleMania and after Monday Night Raw. And we're going to find out about that, because joining us as soon as we come back from this break, joining us is none other than Big Daddy Donnie. You know him from the Godfathers of Podcasting, the host of that, along with myself, as well as, if you've been paying attention to this show, you've always heard the truth bombs with Big Daddy that Donnie DeSilva drops. And wow, unbelievable. So we're going to find out the truth, the real truth. And I'm not talking about just the R-truth of WrestleMania, but with the truth of WrestleMania and how it happened. So let's take a quick break, Bradie, because I don't want to waste any more time. And when we come back, we're going to have Donnie in here with us. We'll be right back right after this. This is The Law, live audio wrestling.
Do you have a podcast? Are you looking for high-profile guests for your show but don't know how to get in touch with them? Go to podstars.net. That's podstars with a Z.net. For less than $9 a month, you can get access to a huge selection of celebrity guests, like wrestling superstar The Blue Meanie, to musicians like Marty Ray, and even actors like Tom Arnold. Podstars is the place to go to connect with everything you need for your podcast. So go to podstars.net with a Z to get signed up. At podstars.net, you'll be happy that you did.
Man, podstars.net. Shouts out to podstars.net. If you want a celebrity for your podcast, hit them up. I can't say it again. I can say it. Actually, I can. Podstars.net. There you go. All right, welcome back to the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Chris, you said we have a special guest, and I don't even consider him a guest. I consider him part of the family, if not one of the godfathers of the wrestling radio family. Let's bring him on in to talk a little bit about Wrestlemania.
Donnie Da Silva, how you doing, brother? Thanks for joining us here on the Law. Like, I don't get to see enough of you as it is, but you know, you have a brain like none other when it comes to this stuff with wrestling and your analysis, putting the anal in analysis for sure. And I always like to hear it. So tell us, Donnie, it was WrestleMania 40, Philadelphia, biggest WrestleMania of all time, according to some people. I mean, monetarily, absolutely.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on all of it right now, if you would, brother.
I mean, overall, I'm one of those people, and I know you like to goof on me for this as well, Tid, that I'm one of those guys that likes to go on social media and read what everyone is saying about the show. I like to read the minutia. I like to take in everything that is coming in. And I think there was a lot of positive feedback all around about both nights of WrestleMania, but I was shocked by the amount of people that just found stuff to just complain about, you know, and just to nitpick and need. Now, there's a difference between being an analyst and talking about things that maybe didn't hit quite the way they could have, and saying, oh, they missed that Cody cutter by 3/4 of an inch. Like, who cares? You know, like, the stuff like that is irrelevant, right? It's trivial. So things like that, and you know, oh, the Uso match was the worst match ever. Really? In a universe where Nathan Jones has had a WrestleMania match, that's the worst match ever? I don't think so. You know, the Uso match, was it off the charts? No, but it was fine. I personally thought it was missequenced. If I was trying to order up what was going on, and this is all like half of one, 6 dozen of another, I probably would have opened night one with the Uso versus Uso match and told them, just go out there and get all your shit in. Just go out there and just do everything and light the house on fire, you know? And that would have been the mentality. They were in a weird spot on the card. And it's like, you've already seen a lot of stuff by that point in the show. And then at the same time, you don't want to take away too much from what's coming. So it's a weird spot on the show for them. A lot of people saying, oh, Jimmy looked like he was out of shape. He's not used to singles action. Okay, but you know what? So what? I mean, at the same time, if that's your biggest problem with 2 nights of WrestleMania, you don't really have that many problems. You know, that's the way I'm looking at it. Overall, I thought everything was fantastic. A lot of people are saying this, so this isn't exactly you know, some expert analysis here, but a lot of people have said, and I'm going on record as saying, best main event ever in WrestleMania history. You know, night 2.
Wow. That's your opinion? Or no, that's what everyone's saying.
I've heard this out there, but I'm 100% putting my personal stamp on that. The best main event in WrestleMania history. And I'm not just talking about the nostalgia factor in terms of all the people that returned and the surprises. And then, you know, as Bruce Pritchard says, the happy bullshit at the end where they lift up Cody on their shoulders and do all that stuff. Aside from all that, okay, that was a tremendously worked match. And if you really watched the match, it's like, oh, I see what's going on here. Roman Reigns, aside from the fact that the bloodline was getting involved, aside from the fact that, yes, he's doing whatever he can to retain his title, he worked like a babyface. He worked like a babyface. Roman Reigns was wrestling and doing spots and doing moves and doing stuff he doesn't normally do. Now, you could look at this two ways. One, it's a preparation for his transition to the next stage of his career where he is going to be a monster babyface. Or you could say he just wanted to stick it up the ass of every mark that says he can't wrestle. He only knows 3 moves, which is the most asinine thing in the world. This dude was pulling out perfect plexes. He was hitting Cody with everything he hit him with his own move. And then
let me rewind to clarify just something from my own brain for a second.
Yeah, please.
When you say best main event, do you classify main event? You're not saying best WrestleMania match of all time. You're just saying best main event.
Best main event in terms of the totality of everything that was part of it. So the work, as well as the story, as well as the packaging, as well as the result, as well as the way it made people feel when they left the building, as well as what it does for business going forward. All of that together, to me, is part of the package. It's not just about like, how good was the match? Gives a shit. That's one piece of the pie. That's one piece of the pie. That match set up so much moving forward, not the least of which is what people have been begging for, the end of Cody's story.
Chris, what did you think about that main?
Well, listen, I thought it was a decent main. I mean, there's a couple of speed bumps in there and stuff like that. I'm just going to go on record in saying that Cody may be the biggest heel in the history of wrestling.
I agree.
And here's why I say this.
I 100%. This is why we do a show together. Hopefully you have the same reasons why. I think
here's why I'm going to say Cody is the biggest heel, ladies and gentlemen. And you can fight me on this all you want. Send in your notifications, cancel your subscriptions. I don't even care anymore. Cody Rhodes, here's a guy who he forced his wife, his father-in-law, his mother, his family. He forced all of these people to come and say, hey, I want you to sit right over there and watch me do greater things than any of you have ever done in your entire lives. All right? I'm the man, and look at me. Give me my belt. I'm a champion. Damn it, Cody. I see what you're doing. You heel.
Coming from a man who has no loved ones. So, of course, this is his take.
This is what I'm saying, right? I
Right.
like to
No, I get it.
just jerked out from underneath you. No, I personally thought that this was, if you were to put the two nights together, this was an exceptional WrestleMania. The fact that it was spread over 2 nights is unbelievable. The fact that the way that they worked the Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Damian Priest angle was fantastic. Because you still got, everybody thought you're going to end up having, maybe Seth, because he's injured, he's going to squeak one out and Damian comes out there and does that. No, they threw a speed bump in there with the CM Punk transition on that, and it made it perfect. Listen, all of the producers, all of the agents, whatever you want to call them this week, back in the back, did a fantastic job. There's no doubt about it.
He is definitely selling tickets.
Yeah.
Punk is selling tickets. CM Punk is selling tickets, and Drew are selling tickets without even getting in the ring and interacting with each other. This is a brilliant storyline that's about to lead to some crazy promos.
And that's the beauty of wrestling, right? Is when you can sell tickets without even touching anybody. But all that being said, CM Punk did an interview last week with Ariel Helwani, and it was obviously everyone has talked about this interview. It was fantastic. But one of the nuggets in there that was overlooked, because everyone was talking about all his shade he was throwing at Tony Khan and everything else. One of the little nuggets in there that was overlooked was when he said, I don't want to say too much, but the arm is better than people think. And they're protecting me from myself. And Ariel's like, oh, so you could have wrestled this weekend? He's like, they're protecting me from myself. And I was like, oh, this guy could get physically involved. Something could happen. Now he didn't do a lot, but he did enough to justify what happened, right? He did enough to justify what happened to Drew McIntyre after holding the belt for 5 minutes and change. And he did enough to up the heat even further. And that's what you need, right? So, and now we had the Raw main event this week, where Drew McIntyre loses the 4-way to be the number one contender for the world title. So obviously that belt is not in his horizon right now. It is fully all about CM Punk, which tells you also Punk is closer to being ring ready than people think. This is not going to be a SummerSlam thing where this thing, now maybe that'll be the first time they touch each other, but it's going to start. The interactivity is going to get going.
Here's a question for you, Donnie. Has there ever, and Bradie, I'll pose this to you as well, because maybe you guys can remember this more than I can. Has there ever been a WrestleMania with so many title switches? Because if you think about it, the only ones that retained was Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
And who else? There was one other one. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Well, the women's tag didn't defend. The U.S. title was retained, Logan Paul.
That was the one. It was Logan Paul. Every other title on the show that was being defended was a switch.
I'm trying to go through the little encyclopedia that I have left in this CTE-ridden brain of mine, and you know what? I think you may be right.
Right?
Maybe the Attitude Era, but they didn't have as many titles to switch. So even if they did have a tag and an Intercontinental and a European and a Hardcore Championship switch, that's nowhere. There's a belt for everybody now.
Back in those days, those mid-card belts were rarely defended at WrestleMania anyway.
The Rock's got his own
fodder for Sunday Night Heat.
The Rock's got his own BMF title now.
Yeah. At the Brahma.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, put that on the line.
This is the only other thing that I really noticed as a takeaway was how much as a company and everybody was really trying to drive it home to the point of, ad nauseum down everybody's throat that this is the Triple H era. This is what we're going. Everybody, like, I get it. You want to wash that stink away from that was before, but we get it. We get it as well. You don't need to keep telling us how important it is to recognize that this is the Triple H era.
Everyone was saying that except Triple H, right? He's the one thing. It's not the Paul Levesque era. Stop calling it that. That's not what it is. But everyone is, what you're seeing and hearing from the roster, everyone that works within the company, as well as the fans. Like, if you paid attention to the open of Monday Night Raw, what you're seeing is everyone is on board with the Paul Levesque direction. Everyone is on board with the Paul Levesque leadership. And how could you not be after 3 straight nights of red hot content, right? Going back to SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, and then 2 nights of Mania. I personally thought they dropped the ball a little bit with Monday Night Raw. I thought they could have done a lot more with that. But that all being said,
I agree.
They can't all be Grand Slams. He did breadcrumb some clues for some new stories. I just think that the way they did it wasn't neat and tidy enough, and it could have been a little cleaner and a little sexier, and it could have been a little hotter and had more stuff happening, right? Especially because people have been conditioned now to believe that the Raw after Mania is almost a pay-per-view in and of itself.
Yep. Who did you like? What was your favorite entrance? I got to ask this because I know which one was mine for obvious reasons. And they had some of the best entrances you've ever seen in any WrestleMania. There's no doubt about it.
So there's one entrance that I have rewatched several times. A lot of them were great, but there's one that I have rewatched several times, and that was Rhea's.
Oh, wow.
I liked the interaction that she had with the band with Motionless in White. She's a huge fan of theirs, and it shows. Like, there's a level of authenticity there that was bleeding through. The beginning there where she and Chris Motionless are staring at each other and singing back and forth. It's like, whoa, there's some magic there, right? And I've said it before. I think Rhea is the number 1 female star on the planet. I don't think anyone is close, like not even close. And she's a heel that everyone loves. But when she turns baby, oh my God. Like, it's just, you're just going to print money with her.
She already is baby. She already is technically.
She basically is, except for the
Yeah.
fact that she doesn't mind taking shortcuts. She doesn't mind cheating. She doesn't mind doing whatever. But once she goes full baby, oh my God. And she's what, 26 years old?
Here's the problem,
She's a
though.
kid.
If she's got to go full baby, you got to have somebody who's going to be a more monstrous heel to force that baby, right? And I don't
Not a
see
few on the
anybody.
roster.
I don't see many in that. Who?
I mean, Jade Cargill's being set up for that. She's going to be unbelievable.
She's going to be fantastic when she's developed. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a bunch of people that are in that ilk. The WWE women's division is unbelievable right now. You know, when you look at what they have between Raw and SmackDown, and then especially on NXT, it's like, come on, man. I mean, listen, you want to talk about a monster women's heel that Rhea could feud with for the next 10 years? Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah, Tiffany's going to be big money. She already is big money, but
Huge
they're
money.
going to be printing money with her. A lot of people that have been in the know knew before she even took a fucking step in that ring that this girl, if she has, because you can see the charisma in her just in a picture, which is really hard to do. You know what I mean? Like that's a quality that is not easy to find. Sometimes you'll see a picture of somebody and you're like, why are they there? Then you meet them in real life and you're like, holy shit, you're like the man of the hour, the woman of the hour. My favorite entrance was The Rock. My favorite entrance was The Rock. I love that Rock entrance. I love how they did the final boss, the video game thing. I think it's I just love that Hollywood entrance. Chris, please tell us, what was your favorite entrance? Although I already know what.
Yeah, I mean, Al, it's quite obvious. I am, even though I'm not from the city, I am a Philly boy through and through. And when I saw all of those mummers on stage for Seth Rollins' entrance,
Amazing.
I popped because listen, you gave me Jason Kelsey the first night, and now you give me all of the mummers in their outfits on second night. I was like, let's go.
So I have been bitching on SMNE Radio for over a year. Shouts out to SMNE Radio. I have been bitching on any show I've ever been on that Seth Rollins. I don't understand the gimmick. I understand that ha 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 ha, and he's a freak. He's a freak. Cool, great. But why are you wearing these stupid clothes? You've never went to a fashion show in New York or Paris, or even tried to explain why you're wearing this gear, right? This explains it. He's one of your boys, Tid.
Yeah. Listen, what he was wearing didn't really look so much mummer. It looked more like he was in, episode 72 of Hunger Games. You know what I mean? That's kind of reminded me of.
He looked like an animated Hobbit or something.
My favorite part was when they kind of cut the camera away to Samantha Irvin doing the entrance of it as they ripped away the costume because they couldn't get it off of him fast enough. And before I forget, shout out to Samantha. Unbelievable talent I mean, outside of like the obvious, I think she stole the show. And she does on a consistent basis. Her emotion and the way that she presents all of the announcing and the calls afterwards for the winners, you could not, and you never will get somebody better than that, in my opinion. She is absolutely adorable.
Here's what I love about Samantha Irvin. She is the first ring announcer that I have seen in WWE or AEW or TNA or even on the indies that is not trying to do a Howard Finkel impression.
Right. Hey, although I have to give myself credit. I did 10 years of ring announcing. I never tried to sound like anybody but myself because I knew that my voice didn't do that. No. I think I tried the first couple of shows. Like you could probably go back through Hammerlock video or something like that and find out the first couple of shows that I ever did as an announcer. I probably did do that.
And
I went into party mode. I was like, let me just do it the same way a DJ would shout out his buddy at an MC.
Did you have the same cadence that everyone does that the Fink created? And
no, I made my own cadence on purpose. Did you never work a show where I was half-ass? I was half-ass. I was pretty good.
Here's the one thing that I will say about Bradie, though, is that even though he didn't do the Fink cadence and entrances, we did often try to get him to take piss tests for us.
I failed every single time.
And we weren't even getting tested. We weren't even getting tested. We just wanted him to pee in a cup for us.
And every time I tried to, I cracked under pressure and just, went the other way out. So okay, guys.
Results came back. He's pregnant.
So WrestleMania, what are your last thoughts from leaving the weekend Raw, leaving NXT, leaving all of the shows that went on this weekend, the cluster fucking GCW, someone shoot me please. I watched that. What was your take from the whole weekend, man?
My biggest takeaway, to be honest with you, was how the WWE has gotten so good at just producing ridiculous amounts of live content. Like when you talk about they did SmackDown and then straight into the Hall of Fame. And then the next morning they had a killer NXT show. Killer. Like that match between Dragunov and Tony D'Angelo was way better than it had any right to being. Yep. The match between Trick and
Mello
was exactly what you wanted it to be, right? The Braun Breaker, Baron Corbin, like everything there is so tight, right? And then you got the night 1, night 2, better than I think a lot of people thought. I remember before WrestleMania, a lot of people like, oh, the whole card sucks. It's just the main event. That's it. The whole card sucks. And then you watch and it's like, there's not one bad match. And when I say bad match, I'm talking about like dog kennel variety. I'm talking about like there was nothing that you looked at and said, oh God, this just insults my intelligence, right? There was none of that stuff. I sat here watching it at my place with my bro Danny O, and he hasn't watched wrestling in years and years and years. And he sat there loving the fact that they had those well-produced story recaps before every match because he hasn't watched in a long time. So that catches him up. And then by the end of night 2, he's saying, man, I got to watch Raw for the first time in 7 years. I got to watch Raw because now I'm sucked back in. This is captivating. This is interesting. And so, and you know, not even to mention the fact they did night 2. Night 2 wraps up. Everyone, or they did night 1. Night 1 wraps up, and then on Sunday morning they're doing the Slammies, like as if nobody wanted to sleep in. They're doing the Slammies, right? And a lot of the talent showed up in person. Some people did pre-recorded acceptances, but a lot of them. I'm like, bro, I barely woke up in time to see the Slammies. I was too tired. There's the Miz and R-Truth dressed to the nines, and they're there in person with a few hundred people. I mean, the ability to do all of that is mind-boggling from a logistics standpoint, you know, and that's the biggest thing to me. I really wish they had come back with a hot Monday Night Raw. I really wish they had.
Can I ask you a question that only puts me and Chris over? Are we the only people that do a show that said back in January that R-Truth was going to get a WrestleMania moment, a proper one? We may have been. Go back to the archives, listeners and viewers, because we basically have been talking about this since the beginning of January. Shouts out to R-Truth finally getting his moment.
The guy had 3 different T-shirts in the top 10 of company merch sales. At the age of 52, like as a mid-card comedy act, like there's no question that he deserved a WrestleMania moment. It didn't even have to be winning the title, you know, the tag title. It could have been anything, but the fact that that's what it was just made it even more special. I love the fact that there were all the prognosticators out there, like the Wave Schmelzers and all those guys that were like, oh, the A-Town Down Under, they're in trouble with the Office. They're not even going to be in the 6-pack match. And then they win the SmackDown belts.
No, fuck that guy. We don't talk about that guy anymore. We did a whole video on him, and I'm still want to delete it off the channel.
It just goes to show you. It just goes to show you what journalists really know. Fuck all.
Nothing. So that's why to me, like, I was in that rat race for a long time, right? Doing shows like this and everything else. I was in that rat race, and Tid knows this, where I was constantly chasing after leads and going, what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? And I don't care anymore. What I like to do is to see what's happening and share what I'm seeing, hopefully from a different lens, and share that with the audience. Because the whole I got news. Like, you got news until someone else gets news 30 seconds before you, and then your news is irrelevant. And then if your news is slightly wrong, everyone's going to shit on you anyways. It is the most thankless spot.
Listen, I was on the phone with two different people, and one in a big company and one in a medium-sized company today for longer than I want to admit. And I will never talk about any of that fucking shit in those conversations, even if they told me to talk about it on the show. I'm like, hey, do your own fucking show if you want your shit out there. These guys, you're annoying people. The boys are getting annoyed. Leave them alone.
Exactly.
Boys and gals. Anyway.
All right. Final one here, Donnie. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are we rating this WrestleMania?
So both nights combined?
Yeah.
All right, listen, I'm going to say if both nights combined, a real, and I'm a tough critic. Okay. So I'm going to say a real solid 7.5 out of 10. Okay. Both nights combined. Overall, I think this is a top 3, top 4 WrestleMania, but I'm also finding it difficult to compare to the one night WrestleManias, right? Because when there's so much more to put out, it's apples to oranges. Yep. So to me, you almost have to have 2 different categories of when you're grading WrestleManias. It's like you have the comparison between all the 2 nights, and then the comparison of all the others. So amongst the 2 nights, this is the best one, I think, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the last couple. I really did. But I thought this one, with the way that all the stories worked and the way that they paid everything off, really great. In terms of like just a little bit of nitpicky stuff, I felt like there was a lot of fan pandering. There was a lot of like, well, the babyface is going over again. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of that. And so at one point, they did sort of swerve a lot of people in terms of what people thought was coming. But then once you saw the pattern, it's like, oh, it's everyone goes home happy night, which is fine. You're allowed to do that now and then. But for me, from a creative standpoint, I would have liked to see a little bit more tension built and a little bit more heat, so that after WrestleMania, as we're now preparing for Backlash and whatever else, that there's more instantly obvious stuff. Now I feel like we're in building mode. Right. So I'd say 7.5 out of 10. And that's good. I mean, to me, that's really good.
Well, listen, like you say all the time, Donnie, you may not agree with that 7.5, and you may not agree with the words that he says, but ladies and gentlemen, it's the truth. Nothing you can do about it. Donnie, I want to thank you so much for joining us here this week. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. Everybody knows you want to check him out. Go to thegodfatherspodcasting.com, or you can follow him on his IG. That is Instagram for you old people. And that's about it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some UFC 300 and the BMF title. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling.
Are you in the market for a used vehicle for your family or business? North Toronto Auction hosts public auctions twice a month, and everyone's invited. Hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment are available. Plus, travel trailers, motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and more. View the entire selection at NorthTorontoAuction.com. Bid online or bid in person. Bid on items from government agencies, financial companies, fleet managers, car dealers, and public consigners. For more information, visit us online at NorthTorontoAuction.com.
TotalSportCards.com, Canada's #1 stop for WWE, AEW, UFC, NHL, NBA, and NFL hobby boxes. Total Sport Cards always delivers the most sought-after products with the best price points in the market that you can find. Keep your collection up to date with TotalSportCards.com.
And now back to the show.
And we are back. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. And remind me to fire that producer who clicked on the wrong button ahead of time. But, whatever. Things happen. Listen, do I care? No, I don't.
Dude, you kill me. You're the best. You're the best. I would never want to do anybody else's show the way that we do this. No, brother,
fun.
Well, here's the thing. I know we're both tired. Both of us watched way more wrestling than we ever should watch. There was a lot. I took in, like I said, GCW. I took in the clusterfuck. I was gonna say Speedball Mike Bailey was the MVP of the weekend again until I seen him in, apparently, I don't know if it was him, in a chicken suit. Bailey, what are you doing, buddy? I know you're getting paid, but holy okay, GCW, that is definitely a flavor for a certain type of wrestling fan, and shouts out to you if you like it.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's fun, I guess.
In the heels of all of that wrestling that had just happened over this past weekend.
Get out of here, wrestling.
We are moving into the WrestleMania of MMA. We're talking UFC 300. Can you believe we're on 300 pay-per-views alone, or PLEs, or whatever we're calling it this week?
There was a couple 0.5s. There was a couple 0.5s in there and stuff. This is technically like 302, but we're going to call it 300.
It's called 300, and we're not counting all the fight nights and all of the other ones that happened. I mean, and here's the sad thing, Bradie. I've seen every single one. I've been there since day one.
Same.
Since day one. And it's unbelievable that we are at UFC 300 in a card that is completely stacked from top to bottom.
Yeah, but sir, that's not sad. That's amazing.
With so many stories going on. You talk about the stories in professional wrestling. Hell, MMA has the same kind of stuff. Let's talk about Jim Miller, for example, he was on UFC 100. He was on UFC 200, and now he's on UFC 300. Dude, there's a story in itself right there. Right? Let's talk about the story about the fact that, like, you've got two former champions that are on the prelims.
No, we're not talking just two former champions. We're talking about two former recent champions within the past, like, 6 to 8 months.
Aljamain Sterling, who's making his debut down at 45.
Yep.
All right. So he's dropped down. So we're excited to see what happens there. Right. And then you're talking about Yuri Prochazka as well on the prelims. This is outstanding maneuvering by the UFC to do all of this. And the headliner of this thing, the headliner between Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill, to find out who really is, because that weight class, back and forth, you had this person had to drop it because of an injury. You had that person have to drop it because of an injury. Then the other person comes back, and then they end up losing it. It's crazy what's going on in that weight class. Now, all of those things been said, there is a bit of a blight on UFC 300, and it's not the matchmaking. It's not the fight that's going to happen. No. It's what the fight is for. I'm talking about Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. In itself, right there, think about that. Put that up in the marquee. Max Holloway, the most dominant person to not have a belt in that weight class. Justin Gaethje, a bona fide killer. A guy who looks like a nerd at a coffee shop, but will absolutely kick the legs right off of your waist at any given time. He's a stud of a stud. But these guys are fighting for, I hate to say it.
People's Championship, man. They're fighting for the People's Championship.
It's the BMF belt. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which in my opinion just stands for blow my fucking face off.
Well, you thought about that for a second, didn't you?
Yeah, because I obviously put in more words than I really needed. Listen, this is the most, we've said this since day one when they first brought this belt out. And who was it? Who was it, Bradie, that brought this fucking belt out?
Whoa. It was the People's Champ.
Yeah.
This is People's Champ.
Yeah.
It was little Dwayne. It was little DD.
It was Dewey. It was little Dewey.
Little DD.
And this is the stupidest belt in the world. The fact that we are still actually talking about, I can understand if this was a one-off for that one time. Quick little promotion. We're going to fight for this thing. We're going to bring out The Rock, and he's going to present it, and it's going to be a real hoot nanny.
Since we've changed the name a few times from things that we've done, and we made transitions to different shows, but when we used to do the pre-punch parlay, I think since the very first episode, we have been bitching about this belt. How it's just stupid.
It is the worst.
You're fine for that one-off. I get it for the one-off. Ha, ha, ha. It's a joke. Yeah, you're in Madison Square Garden, which I think that's where it was, or Miami or something like that. It was one of these big events, and they had a lot of steam behind it because of Nate.
Right.
But it's gone. Nate's not even in the company anymore. Or Jorge.
It's done.
It's done.
It's done. Why are we still talking about it? Why is it still a thing that's being promoted? Why is the only way I could see this being any kind of belt is if you were to have that kind of belt in every single division, and that was your number one contender's belt for that division. Because it makes absolutely zero sense to me whatsoever to have this random belt that could move from weight class to weight class. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't get you any kind of extra money. It doesn't get you any kind of extra notoriety. In fact, what it gets you is ridicule. What it gets you is made fun of. What it gets you is laughed at. Now, I would never do that to Justin Gaethje because I like to be able to walk.
Yeah, you get your head kicked right off them big shoulders.
Well, I don't know about that. I am a lot taller than that dude. Let's face facts.
I've seen okay.
But I'm telling you, he's going to hit me with one of those right in the calf, and I'm going to be his height in about 2.2 seconds.
Yeah, neither of us want to fight anybody that's even been in the and including CM Punk. We don't want to fight any of the guys that have ever been through the UFC or even trained with sparring partners of the guys in the UFC. We're at a different level when it comes to MMA now. These aren't just fighters; these are actual killers. Yeah. So you have two killers going in there to fight for a belt. That is just a joke at this point. Yeah. Unless it comes with a BMF bonus, I don't give a shit.
Oh, the big money factor.
But that's what they should be doing. They should be changing it from a belt to just a big bonus and saying, here's a prize fight. We're doing a prize fight with two guys that have broken their backs for this company, and whoever wins this is getting $500,000. And look, those two, you think they're going to take early stoppage when there's $500,000 on the line for as a bonus? No. So we're not talking about a fight purse. We're just talking about bonus.
Max Holloway, first of all, doesn't know how to take a break in a fight.
Yeah, that's not
there's no doubt about that. And Justin Gaethje is going to go out there and he's not going to try to box with a guy like Max Holloway. He's going to hit him with a couple of leg kicks to get him off of that front foot so that he can't throw those things. The difference is you're talking about Max Holloway, who's got that island pride, right? He's got that Hawaiian pride in him, and he doesn't know when to stop. That's the problem with Max Holloway. If Max Holloway doesn't win this fight, I think that he's done. He should be done at this point. Okay. But I also think that if Justin Gaethje doesn't win this fight, then Max Holloway doesn't deserve that next title shot either. I also think that this belt needs to stop. This needs to be the last fight that we ever hear about a BMF title, a BMF belt, right? And we just don't need to have it happen. There's way more stories and better things in the UFC to be talking about. Hell, we haven't even mentioned the fact that Kayla Harrison is coming over to the UFC, and if she gets one win in the UFC against Holly Holm, boom, she's going to get an instant title shot. I guarantee it, because that's where they want to put the money. That's the stories that they want to tell. The UFC does not need this bullshit belt. Get rid of it. Get rid of it, throw it in the trash, throw it off a bridge, give it to Alundra Blaze, and say, you know what to do with this damn thing, honey.
Okay, so let's take the card from the prelims onward. From not the early prelims, let's just take it from the prelims, the televised prelims onward. Do you got those in front of you?
No, I thought you did.
No, I was just going to say, well, okay, we know the card. So I just want your predictions on what you think, not so much the winners of just where you feel where we're going to end up with each fight. So if you want to pull that up, okay. Let's go. I'm just going to pick names. Make it easier on your life.
Okay.
Let's just start with the main. We'll go backwards. Jamal Hill versus Poatan.
Listen, I
don't know.
I think Jamal Hill ends up winning this. I think Jamal Hill is going to end up surprising a lot of people in this. I'm not sold on the Poatan Alex Pereira train as of yet, but I do like the fact that Jamal Hill is going to end up surprising some people. And you look at me weird like that, Brady, because I said that I'm not convinced on the Poatan thing. But here's the deal: nobody has ever been fast tracked faster than Alex Pereira.
Bo Nickel
is a different fucking story. Bo Nickel hasn't gotten a title shot just because they put him on the prelim, just because they made him the chick match, just because they made him the popcorn match.
No.
You might as well have little people out there fighting instead of Bo Nickel.
Okay, sorry, I said Bo Nickel. We'll talk about that in a second. So, you don't think Pereira has proven himself yet? You're not on, well, I shouldn't say that. You didn't say that. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you're not on the train.
No, I am not, and I
All
think that Jamal Hill ends up coming out with a victory that makes everybody go, "Oh, we're going to have to get behind this guy."
All right, so Zhang Wenli versus Yan Xiang.
Yeah, listen, Weili Zhang is like almost a 4-1 favorite in this fight for a reason. The weird thing is this was the first title fight that they announced for UFC 300. I don't understand it. Weili Zhang is going to steamroll her opponent. No doubt about it.
Okay, that's all. That's all right. Well, Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway, you already talked about. We got Oliveira versus Arman. Now, Arman's been getting in a little bit of trouble recently with some of his comments and suppressors and social media. So there's a lot of people gunning for Oliveira right now. More so, there's always people gunning for Oliveira, but there's a lot of people behind the corner of Oliveira against a guy like Arman.
Yes, Arman Tsarukyan has gone out and said that he's going to get a first-round knockout out of this. I don't see that happening. Charles Oliveira is way too tough, but crazier things have happened. I think this is a fight. To me, this is a pick'em fight because either one of these guys could end up surprising you. Do I think that Arman Tsarukyan should win this fight? Yes, story-wise, because we need to breed new blood into that title contention spot.
Story-wise, yes.
And everybody's seen Charles Oliveira. If I'm booking this like wrestling, Arman Tsarukyan wins this fight.
But it's like almost impossible to not bet with Bronx because look at how many times people have lost money betting against him, right?
You always lose money betting against Du Bronx. There's no doubt about it. Right?
So we've got Cody Brunage, who's no slouch.
Nope.
But somehow is a plus 1,100 at the time of this recording against a minus 2,100 in Bo Nickel.
Yeah, listen, Cody Brundage is a guy who belongs in the UFC and he's there for a reason. And it's not to be fodder for Bo Nickel, although they think that they're going to try to push Bo Nickel to the moon. But we've seen time and time again what happens with a lot of these guys. When they set them up, they fail. This happens more often than not. And this is a thing that I could see happening to at least one, if not two people that are doing, just this on this card. The other one being Kayla Harrison. I don't think that Kayla Harrison is as big a hype as people make her out to be. She hasn't fought anybody when she was fighting over in PFL, except for a bunch of cans. They gave her Larissa Pacheco, and Larissa fucking schooled her. And now you're going up against somebody who has one of the highest fight IQs in all of women's fighting whatsoever. We're talking about the person that took out Ronda fucking Rousey the first time. Holly Holm, the preacher's daughter, is no slouch as much as you might think. Her stand-up and her accuracy is top-notch. Kayla Harrison's only chance at this is to be able to take Holly Holm down and try to lay on top of her for 3 rounds.
I can't. I'm not going to argue with you on that. As passionate as you are, I wouldn't argue even if I disagree. But fortunately for me, I agree.
There you go.
Yuri Prochazka versus Ratchet.
Boy, this is going to be a stand-up war. I mean, listen, Prochazka definitely has to come back, and he has something to prove in this against Ratchet. I don't know if that's going to be as easy as everybody thinks it is. I think that Ratchet was given a couple of bum deals with some of his previous fights, and the fact that this is the main event of the prelims tells you exactly how stacked this card is. But I do think that the winner of this fight ends up fighting the winner of the main.
Okay.
I think, and as much as they might not like it, I think Jamal Hill versus Ratchet is a hell of a fight.
It is. I don't disagree.
It's not a pay-per-view fight. That is definitely a fight night main event. And you know what I mean? If you were to put Alex Pereira against Ratchet or, Prochazka, it's still a fight night.
So Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling.
Aljamain making his 145 debut against Calvin Kattar, and Calvin Kattar is a guy who, listen, we've seen him go through wars. If you think you're walking through Calvin Kattar, you're not doing that at all. We've seen that guy take 7,432 shots to the face and still keep standing. When people were saying you have to stop this fight, Calvin Kattar was the last person to say that because he doesn't know any better. He's just out there as a dog fighting. Aljamain Sterling making his debut down at 145. I don't know what's going to happen here. Aljo's got a lot better wrestling, and I think that he's going to have to utilize that wrestling. He is going to come in, considerably bigger because he's just used to walking around with more weight. And I think that, training at Longo Serra is going to come into play with this one. I think Aljo's going to end up taking him down, and I think Aljo makes a good win. Nothing against Calvin Kattar. I think that he's, kind of on his way out of that division and out of the UFC. And I think that Aljo ends up pulling this one out.
No, I'm just going to pick one last random one from the pile because there's so many fights still left throughout the entire prelims. Basically, when this starts, turn whatever on that you have that you are watching this on, because it is at the beginning of the day. This is another WrestleMania weekend especially for fight fans. This is your WrestleMania weekend. So we got Green versus Miller. You think Miller's going to end the story? He's going to finish the story?
Man, he has to finish his story. The fact that Jim Miller has a win at 100, has a win at 200, and now he's going to try to get a win at 300 when he's almost as old as the number of the UFC that we're about to watch. It is unbelievable, the career that Jim Miller has had. But he is going up against a dude who has played spoiler for so many guys. Bobby Green is a stud when it comes to fighting in that octagon. I don't know if Jim Miller is going to be able to handle that. I think that Bobby Green, unless he can catch him, because Bobby Green's one of those guys, fights with his hands down, fights really long and kind of in and out, you know what I mean? But he's been caught. Bobby Green has been caught, and Jim Miller has knocked out dudes. So I think, you know what? I'm going to say it just because we're coming off of the heels of WrestleMania. We're coming off of Cody finishing his story. God damn it, Jim Miller. Sorry, Jim fucking Miller. You got to finish your story too, brother. Let's go.
All righty then. Well, I'm looking forward to UFC 300 because I can't wait to watch all of these fantastic girls and all these studs fighting this weekend. This is going to be a big weekend for fights. And speaking of studs, the Blue Mini sold out as watch parties this weekend.
It was unbelievable. Shout out to the Blue Meanie. Shout out to the Blue Meanie and his new bride who got married on WrestleMania weekend. Unbelievable. Didn't tell anybody. I didn't get an invitation because, I wasn't in Philly. But if I'd have been there, I'd have been there. Shout out to Tracy. Shout out to the Blue Meanie, my boy and my girl. Love you guys to death. And congratulations on everything that is going on down there for you.
And if you want to book the Blue Meanie, you're going to have to go to the following, podstars.net. I know Chris is ready with that little button. We're going to play this gimmick right here. If you want to book the Blue Meanie, get a hold of these guys.
Absolutely. And when we come back, we're going to try to tell you exactly where the hell is Maxwell Jacob Friedman actually been. I don't know about this Michael guy.
Where's Michael?
Who knows? Michael?
Do you have a podcast? Are you looking for high-profile guests for your show but don't know how to get in touch with them? Go to podstars.net. That's podstars with a Z.net. For less than $9 a month, you can get access to a huge selection of celebrity guests like wrestling superstar The Blue Meanie, to musicians like Marty Ray, and even actors like Tom Arnold. Podstars is the place to go to connect with everything you need for your podcast. So go to podstars.net with a Z to get signed up. At podstars.net, you'll be happy that you did.
All right. And we are back, and this is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Bradie, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Because you saw the interaction, and everybody's been talking about it. AEW doesn't have him on their website anymore, but he didn't show up at WrestleMania weekend like you had hoped, you predicted. You put it out there for the world to see. But let me ask you this. Where the hell is MJF?
Well, let me preface this. And to add a point, I never said I predicted that MJF was going to show up at WrestleMania.
Oh, no, I didn't say predicted. I said you wanted.
I would have liked to see that, yeah, but I also wanted, Owen Hart to come back and wrestle a match. And it ain't fucking happening either. But what I said last week, then the clip that we used for a short and it went viral and all this stuff, as I said, can I make a fanboy prediction? Which means a prediction from a fanboy, not a fanboy standpoint or a fanboy point of view, just as a fanboy playing the role of a fanboy. I wanted MJF to show up at some point this weekend. It didn't happen.
No.
Now, there's a theory going around.
Okay, shoot it.
There's a few theories. One is AEW has somehow signed him over the past month to a deal that extends to 2027.
Okay.
That's a theory. Another theory is that he's the king of kayfabe, and if he was going to take time off of TV, whether he signed a deal or he didn't sign a deal, he would have reached out to people at AEW and said, pull my merch and pull, who cares about money? Because you don't, apparently, with the stuff that you're doing with the decision making. So pull my merch and pull me off the roster, and let's just play this into the kayfabe angle. Number 3 is that The Rock handed Cody Rhodes a diamond ring on Monday Night Raw last night and said, don't break my heart.
Well, that's an interesting one because, he could have just been saying, don't break my heart, my achy, breaky heart.
Could have been.
I don't know the rest of the words because it's country music.
Here's the theory laid out, and I should have it on the wall.
Hit me with it.
So
we'll imagine that there's a whiteboard behind you.
Cody, back when MJF turned on him, he was like brokenhearted. You broke my heart. It wasn't what you did. It wasn't so much what you did. It's that you broke my heart, right? Okay. The Rock hands him something like this in his hand. It's small enough where it can fit from palm to palm. None of these are big palms from these boys, but still, palm to palm. Cody put it in his pocket. He instantly got angry. Instantly started gritting his teeth, and this is what they showed on TV. So if this was the diamond ring, and it wouldn't be the AEW diamond ring. At this point, we just know MJF's character wears a diamond giant pinky ring. That's just part of his persona. You don't have to shout out AEW. It's just some dude. That's the theory. And then the breaking of the heart, and The Rock is taking off, and in my place, I made an executive decision to hire this kid, and this is the story that's going to develop, and he's going to end up costing me the bell. I'll have to go one-on-one. All this shit, whatever the fuck people come up with. That's a great storyline. Unfortunately, what The Rock handed Cody Rhodes was the keys to his bus. They were the keys to his bus that started on fire.
Do you think The Rock started the fire?
I think that's the story they're going with. I think it really happened, and then now they're running with that. I think he handed them the keys, and that's why he said you don't even have to look at it to know what it is.
Interesting, because I can remember one time for myself that somebody handed me something, and I put it directly into my pocket, and it made me mad instantly. And I'm talking about it was a $5 bill from one Tony Little to try to get into a club one time. And I walked back up to him and I gave it back and said, you're going to need this more than I will, mister.
Wait, Tony Little?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. The absizer guy, the gazelle, the guy with one mullet. Yeah.
I'm a lot older than I look on this camera right now. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know Tony Little.
Yeah, tried to slip me a $5 bill to get into the nightclub one time when I was still working, running door. And I put it in my pocket just right away, shake it, put it in the pocket or whatever. He goes, I escort him in. He goes in, I pull it back out. I see that it's a $5 bill. I put it down on the bar in front of him with a stack of drink tickets and said, here, how about you just give that $5 bill as a tip?
Dude, that's hilarious. I thought my story about Bieber's dad was bad, but that pretty much takes the cake.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Holy
all right.
Shit.
So we don't know where Michael is.
Well, we don't know. His name isn't Michael. It's Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
No, it's Michael now.
Okay. Anyway, we don't know where Mikey is. Mikey's gone. Mikey's lost, and Maxwell Jacob Friedman. If you were to say, "Hey, Bradie, can you bet money right now on it?" I'd say no, because there is no safe bet here. We don't know what he's doing. He can chase money. He can chase notoriety. Either way, he's getting paid, and he's going to be doing whatever he wants to do and whatever is best for his life. So wherever he decides to show back up, just be happy that he actually showed back up, and that's reality on something like a CM Punk. You may not like the guy. Just be happy he's on TV because he makes things better. And if you disagree, you're obviously stupid. And you're fearing for your life as I'm saying this.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Bradie, it's been a hell of a show.
Yeah, well, we're not done yet for the audio listeners.
Just about to tell everybody.
No, I stole your spot.
For those of you, well, typical. For those of you that are continuing to listen to this on all of your podcast providers, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, please go over to our Podbean Live Audio Wrestling and join that right away. Please do so. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, what you can do is you can go and click that next video, because that next video is going to be a sit down. It's TID's Kick in the Head, where I have the pleasure of sitting down with an old friend. I mean, we've known each other since, the days that we broke in right around the same time. It's crazy. I'm talking about Showtime Eric Young. I'm talking about the world-class maniac Eric Young. I'm talking about Super Eric. I'm talking about a man who started Sanity in the WWE. He also Violent by Design in TNA. And if that wasn't enough, we're talking about a guy who actually caught sharks while in an inner tube. Unbelievable.
I used to call him Coach. Now I just call him what he is.
And
Brilliant.
we're going to talk about all of his wrestling stuff. We're going to talk about things that he really can't even talk about, but I get it out of him. And he's got a surprise, a new show coming out later in the year. We're going to unveil that. The first time you've ever heard it anywhere is going to be right here on the Law Live Audio Wrestling. So for all of you journalists out there, if you're going to clip it, if you're going to talk about it, make sure that you get the show right. Make sure that you say the right name. If you need to know it, it's the Law Live Audio Wrestling. All right? So we're going to take another quick break. No, actually, screw it. We're going to wrap this.
I will take a break for the audio listeners, video listeners. We are out of here. Chris, you want to say anything before we roll this ride out?
I think we know what you're going to say, because of all this anger, all this venom, all of this stuff. If you're going to come for me, make sure you tuck your chin.